quarterback, and then we head to our nation's capital. Meeting of the top two players taken in the 2024 draft. Caleb Williams and the Bears visiting Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. Bears have won 2 straight coming off a bye. Commanders have won 5 in a row at home. And we begin NFL Live with some breaking news. Adam Schefter with us right off the top. Shefty, what can you tell us?
Hannah, the Tennessee Titans have become the first NFL team this season to fire their head coach, Brian Callahan. He went 4-19 in 2 seasons. The team struggled. It struggled to protect its #1 overall pick, Cam Ward. It won 1 game in Arizona. Everybody remembers that game from last week when Amari DiMercato fumbled the touchdown into a touchback. And now the Titans have fired Brian Callahan. We're waiting to see who they decide to appoint as the interim head coach. A couple of candidates on staff that would make sense. Mike McCoy, formerly the head coach of the Chargers. John Fossil, who served in an interim role before. We'll see what direction they go, but they better figure it out quickly because this weekend, one of the coaches that the Titans already fired, Mike Vrabel, is leading the Patriots back into Tennessee to face the Titans.
How ironic is that? Thanks, Adam. We'll get back to you shortly. Listen, we have so much to get to. We have the crew to do it. We have J-Mac. We have Field Yates here. Dan Orlovsky's in Atlanta to call the game tonight. Mina Kimes is with us. Dan, let me start with you. What's your reaction to this news?
Yeah, the first call I would make if I was Tennessee would be to a guy who's going to be coaching on the field tonight. Behind me is Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. The second call I would make is Mike McCarthy, then Vance Joseph. I'd call Arthur Smith, who's doing a great job in Pittsburgh, and Jesse Minter as the defensive coordinator of the Chargers. Those would be the first 5 on my list. You have to have somebody that has at least a vision of what is next for Cam Ward. It's going to be very much so dependent on trying to get him to play up to his best possibility. The reality is, yes, this is a results-based business, but there's also an improvement that was needed in Tennessee. That did not happen. There wasn't, at least on tape, didn't see to be on a ton of buy-in from some players when it came to come to what Brian Callahan was preaching, and they obviously did not win. So it's a new start. They got to build some, at least, continuity in Tennessee. They fired a lot of people in the last 5 or 6 years, but those names that I mentioned would be my first calls for Cam Ward and the Titans' future.
Yeah, you hate this mid-season for Cam Ward, rookie quarterback. Having that kind of change is never a good thing, but it's also not surprising. Callahan, there's the win-loss record, but he was brought in to fix the offense coming from Cincinnati, and the offense has been an abject disaster this year. They rank last in just about every meaningful category, but the one that really jumped out to me they're averaging under 4 yards per play on offense. To put that in perspective, there has not been a single NFL team in the last 20 years over the course of a season that's averaged under 4 yards per play. I know it's week 6, but things haven't been trending in the right direction. On top of that, there's been issues with clock management. I think back to the end of the first half versus the Colts, the field goal fiasco, admissions about not knowing the rules. You remember with the catch, and all told, this is not entirely surprising, even if you do worry about what it means for Cam Ward's development this year.
Yeah, it seems to be the norm. 17 out of the last 39 quarterbacks drafted since 2016. Head coach has been fired in either the first year or following the first year. So when you look at that, that seems to be what Cam Ward's going to go through and what so many other guys like him have gone through as first-round draft picks. I look at this situation for the Tennessee Titans, and Dan hit on what's the future for them when they start interviewing who's going to be the permanent head coach. But for right now, they have the New England Patriots coming into town Sunday. Mike Vrabel was there, had a lot of success, was coach of the year. I got to assume they're maybe looking at this situation and saying, hey, maybe we get a little bump from an interim head coach letting go of Callahan as Vrabel's coming into town. And if they were going to let go of him maybe after, you don't want to give him that satisfaction. I don't know exactly why right now in this instance, maybe just to move on and see what's next. But, hey, for Cam Ward, it is a long road ahead now.
They're going to need that interim head coach to be able to cover pass catchers with the way that Drake May is playing right now. Because this Patriots offense is certainly finding its rhythm, at least in the passing game. It's the perfect storm here for Brian Callahan. I think there are people that closely monitor this team that think this might even be a few weeks too late. 4 wins and 23 efforts. The only win this season, frankly, was a game that the Cardinals lost. The Titans won that game, but Arizona really handed it to them as well. On top of that, I felt like at some point a change was coming when I heard their best player, Jeffrey Simmons, yesterday after the game talking about how Thursday was their worst practice, perhaps, of the entire season. The team finally getting a little bit of momentum after a win, maybe feeling slightly better about itself, and then your best player basically saying the tone was set on Thursday in a negative way. Not a surprise. I guess these are always a little bit surprising given the timing, but at some point this change was coming, Dano.
Yeah, so let's be honest about the Tennessee Titans, though, okay? I don't know their ownership group, and there's a lot of respect, obviously, but their ownership in the last 4 or 5 years, babyface, you know this, has fired a general manager, and then hired a new general manager, and then fired a coach, and fired that coach, and fired that general manager, now hired a new general manager, and hired a new coach, and fired the coach. There's no continuity within the organization when it comes to top-down leadership, and so Tennessee, new stadium, super talented quarterback, new general manager comes from Kansas City in the recent past year. You've got to make sure that you get these choices right of general manager, head coach, and the people around the quarterback to build long-term success. This can't just be let's hire and fire every 2 years, because you're not going to win that way. You're not going to get your young quarterback to play well that way.
And let's give you the list of names that you're talking about there, Dan. They fired General Manager John Robinson, who had collected a tremendous collection of talent there in Tennessee. Then they fired Mike Vrabel, who obviously has gone on to have the success that he's had here in New England. Then they fired Rand Carthen, who did a nice job there and is one of the bright young minds in the NFL. And now they fired Brian Callahan. So they've gone through an awful lot of people in Tennessee. You mentioned the new stadium coming. That could be a part of it. But the fact of the matter is there were a number of gaffes this season. I think people across the league thought the Titans would be patient to the end of the year, but obviously the owner did not want to do that.
The last 4 quarterbacks drafted number 1 overall, and 6 of the last 8 have now seen their head coach fired during their rookie season.
Whoa.
All right, much more on that coming up. I know that's brutal, right? All right, Lions, Chiefs, Sunday Night Football. Here we go. Yeah, no Josh Simmons. That was a last-minute change. Lions at Arrowhead, and Goff under pressure. What does he do here? Throwing.
James Williams right over the middle. That's the one thing Goff can do. You can bring the pressure. He's going to sit in that pocket confident, and that's one heck of a celebration, Field.
Hey.
Mahomes to Travis Kelce here, Field.
McKelsey has been excellent over these past couple weeks, kind of finding that rhythm there, and this entire Chiefs passing offense last night felt like each person played their role perfectly. Rasheed Rice.
This score comes after a turnover.
Yeah, and Patrick Mahomes, his 4th rushing touchdown this season, already ties a career high for a single season.
First and goal here. A quick flick to Hollywood Brown, J-Mac.
Andy Reid is one of the best in the NFL. When you get in the red zone, he's dialing something up that's going to get into the end zone.
Lions second and goal on the 4, and this, what a catch by Sam Laporta, Field.
Ridiculous. Like that one right there took me about 5 replays to actually believe it was true. One hand is all he needs.
Next drive, the Chiefs third and goal on the Lions 3. Mahomes finds Brown wide open across the middle.
And that's what it's going to take. You saw it, couldn't even believe it right there. But Mahomes buying time. Defenders running into each other. Hollywood Brown jumping in the stands. And then, hey, that's the smile that you love, ain't it?
That's quite the grill, isn't it? All right. Looks pretty good when you win, doesn't it? The Xavier Worthy effect as well in full swing for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, even when he isn't the target, when Worthy is on the field. Kansas City averaging 2 more yards per play, and Patrick Mahomes has twice as many touchdowns despite Worthy being on the field for only 1/3 of the season. So Dan, Rasheed Rice is also back as of today, or as soon as they start practicing. What did you see from the Chiefs offense last night?
Trust. And I'm talking the trust from Andy Reid and Matt Nagy when it comes to the offensive line and the perimeter players. That's really been something that's been lacking in this offense for 2 years. And you see it back now with their red zone creativity. That is something that has been a staple, but one, win at the line of scrimmage. Watch the left foot jab by Worthy. Then that creates really that man-to-man pick by Juju. That's the first touchdown of the game for the Kansas City Chiefs. Then I'm talking about confusion. Man across the board. This is vintage Andy Reid and Matt Nagy. Motion by Hollywood, but when we flip it to him, we bring Kareem Hunt cross. Linebackers paying attention. Don't block the defensive end. No clue where the football is. Lead blockers out front. this says to me, Matt Nagy and Andy Reid are like, hey, our offensive line's good enough again. Our perimeter players are good enough. We can get creative. And then the final touchdown, really the one that seals the game. Once again, man-to-man. You're going to fast flow the back, snap it 4-by-1. Now look at all the traffic that you're creating for Hollywood Brown's defender to have to run through. You get linebackers running into linebackers and safeties and a lack of communication in that flood. For me, I really haven't seen this from this offense in 2 years. I've talked about the last 2 or 3 weeks. It's the best they've looked. It's the most complete they've looked. They're doing more things that solidify their offense. Now, yesterday reminded everybody the creativity is back, and that's because they trust that group up front and the playmakers outside.
Yeah, Andy Reid may be one of the single greatest play callers against man coverage that I've ever seen. This game, the Chiefs Lions, both defenses played a ton of base, 3 backers, 4 defensive backs. The difference was Kansas City was able to take advantage of it in a big way. I mean, Jack Campbell and Alex Anzalone, they're good linebackers, but the Chiefs hunted them in this game. 15 targets between the two of them, 12 catches for 155 yards. It was at all 3 levels, RPO screens, deep balls downfield, and it was absolutely relentless. The other thing I want to add is what you're seeing here. I'm mentioning this because it's part of the reason they were able to keep them in base. Some of that had to do with injuries, but also it's something that Dan and I are obsessed with. They were so much better running the ball from under center. Isaiah Pacheco, 50% of his carries were under center this game, nearly 6 yards per carry. We have been begging for this all season. It's good to see that number goes up. I think it could go up even more, and then they can continue building the play action off of that.
Yeah, because the running game still hasn't been great so far, but I would say Patrick Mahomes right now leads the Chiefs with 222 rushing yards. Probably not a trend the team wants to persist for the full 17-game regular season. I've never seen him weaponize his legs as well as he is right now. The ability to buy extra time, and then these kind of decisions that he forces a defensive back or a linebacker or even a defensive lineman into. Do you hard charge to try to make a sack or hit behind the line of scrimmage on Patrick Mahomes and risk him potentially throwing the football down the field? Or do you hold back and retreat and then see him pick up 10, 12, 15 yards as a scrambler? He has 4 rushing touchdowns this season, already tied for a career high. He is on pace for over 650 rushing yards, J-Mac. He probably won't get there because at some point this won't be the same type of offense they play. But the way that he is weaponizing his legs puts defenses into a bad decision pretty much every single time he escapes the pocket.
It absolutely does, and I hated it as a DB when the quarterback's coming at you.
What do you do?
And you have to make that split-second decision. Something that Mina said, I was watching this game, and what I looked at, I was like, man, I could be out there playing. This reminds me of the 2010s where it was just base personnel, 12, 21. You had all of these guys running downhill. And as I'm watching that game for the Chiefs on defense, what stood out was Nick Bolton and Leo Chanel. Those guys were flying around and making tackles all over the field. The Lions' run game, yes, they had some positive plays, but you didn't see those 25, 30-yard plays where Jahmyr Gibbs is running into long, explosive touchdown. They kept them under wraps, and they were able to make some plays defensively to really hold this offense back. Dan Campbell said it. We're going to have to score 30 points to win this game, and they limited this Lions offense, which is a huge deal coming off of that Monday night game against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, I love that, J-Mac. Babyface, I wanted to touch on your point with Patrick's legs, and I think there's a very big difference this year in comparison to last year. Last year, he was running for his life often. This year, I think what you're seeing with the under center, with some of the play action and the tight ends is they're just sitting there going, let's run some of that. We'll make sure there's some protection. And if we don't win on the pass concept, the quarterback will go create. I think there's a big difference between last year running for his life and this year. It's really just, I have the time, and that's kind of like the second play within the play that he's doing. And that's an added part that is kind of old school Patrick as well.
Yeah, they just managed to slow down the Lions' hair on both offense and defense. Adam Schefter joins us now for more on what's transpired after the game. Lions safety Brian Branch igniting a scuffle at the end of that game. So take us through the sequence of events and the potential fallout.
Well, clearly Brian Branch was worked up with the way the game went and how he was blocked on some of the plays and how penalties were not called against the Kansas City Chiefs the way they were the Detroit Lions. Clearly, he let his emotions get the best of him when he walks over to Juju Smith-Schuster, slaps him in the head right there. That leads to this skirmish here between Juju Smith-Schuster and Brian Branch, in which Juju's thrown to the ground. And we've seen here before, take a look at this play right here, where Brian Branch is involved in the play, and again, this went on all afternoon. But in the end, the league is now reviewing the situation, and in an effort where they pointed out that sportsmanship will be a point of emphasis, you'd have to think that they're going to treat this very seriously. At the very least, there will be heavy fines involved for the players who were involved, but it's certainly possible that we'll get a suspension. If that particular incident had occurred before the game, Brian Branch would have been thrown out of the game at that point in time, the way that Jalen Carter was thrown out of the game in the opener when he spit on Dak Prescott. He obviously, the game was over. So now the league will decide, and I think there are people across the league who would not be surprised if he wound up being suspended for a game.
Yeah, Dan Campbell apologizing afterwards and saying that wasn't acceptable within their organization either. All right, Adam, this was really tough to see yesterday, as if things weren't bad enough for the 49ers. Fred Warner, oh my goodness. So take us through that and some other injuries.
Well, the moment he went down, you knew it was serious. You could tell by the way everybody reacted when TV doesn't show the replay and he goes down. He's carted off right away. They put his ankle in an air cast. Turns out that his ankle is broken. It's dislocated. He's going to have surgery. He's going to be out for the year. It's a major loss in every way for the 49ers. As for Puka Nacua, he sprained his ankle yesterday. Now, the Rams